Welcome to the 15th tutorial of my Tableau Server Client series. This series is dedicated to showcasing how to use Tableau Server Client to automate various tasks. In this video, I will walk you through how to refresh extracts published to your Tableau server using Tableau Server Client. Before jumping into the script, allow me to explain why triggering extract refreshes via Python scripts might be advantageous. Tableau Server Client allows you to embed the logic for running extract refreshes into other data orchestration tools like Oracle Data Integrator and Airflow. This permits more robust conditional execution options. For example, suppose your extracts data is sourced from your company's data lake, and you want the extract refresh to run after the upstream job responsible for populating or updating the data lake source is completed. By embedding the Python script into another orchestrator and process, you can ensure that is the case. Your extract refresh will no longer run on a schedule managed by your Tableau server, and the process for running extract refreshes becomes more intelligent because the job will only run when the source has been populated or updated. Additionally, Tableau Server Client allows you to schedule and run extract refreshes more frequently than the available frequency on Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud. Currently, you can run an extract refresh every 15 minutes on Tableau Server and hourly on Tableau Cloud. This can be useful if your data is available in real or near real time and you would like to use an extract instead of a live connection. You get the best of both worlds: the power of Tableau's hyper-technology and data as up-to-date as the speed for which your extract refresh can run. Having briefly touched on a couple of benefits, let's continue by jumping into Visual Studio Code to develop a script that will allow us to trigger an extract refresh maintained on my Tableau server. To get started, we're going to configure our Tableau server authentication object. So this object is going to be responsible for allowing you to authenticate and sign into your Tableau server or Tableau Cloud instance. To configure that, we need a token name, token value, and a site ID. We're going to pass those into this authentication object here using the same values. So these parameters: token name, personal access token, and site ID. We'll go ahead and run this to configure that authentication object. If you're unfamiliar with how this works, please see tutorial 2 of this Tableau Server Client series. It's going to walk you through how to connect to your Tableau server or Tableau Cloud instance for the first time. The next step, we're going to use that authentication object we just created, so Tableau_auth, to sign in and authenticate it with our server. So let's just go ahead and run that. That works successfully. The next step is we want to refresh an extract published to our Tableau server. So for example, if I go to my Tableau Cloud instance, this is the extract we want to refresh during this tutorial. So I have a North America sales extract that is published to this Tableau Cloud instance, and we want to be able to programmatically refresh this as opposed to having to come to the front end of the Tableau server or Tableau Cloud instance and click refresh or use some other method to do so. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's implement the means to do that. So in previous videos, you would have seen something like data sources equals data source for data source in tsc.pager server.datasources. And what this would have done, if you're trying to generate a report, it would have taken each of the data sources published on my server, so using the server.datasources endpoint, it would have taken each of those data sources and placed those objects in a list. So let's go ahead and do that. And let me just add a block here, and let's just look at data sources. All right, so we have a bunch of data sources published and maintained on my Tableau Cloud instance. And we actually only want to refresh one of these, right? So we don't want to actually create a list that's going to maintain each and every data source in it and refresh all of these, right? We just want one. And that one in particular that we want to refresh is this one down here. So one way to refresh this extract or to pull out the single extract we want to refresh is just to subset this and pull out this individual data source object from this list and place it in a variable, right? Another way to do this is to actually, from the get-go, instead of retrieving every data source and putting them or maintaining them in a list object, we can create a filter request. So let's create a filter request. And we're going to use the request options class. And we're going to add a filter to that. Let me just type out a few things and I'll explain exactly what this means. Okay, so what we have here is we have a filter request. So we're taking this request options class that we've created or instantiated. We're going to add a filter to it. And the filter is going to be a filter that's based on the name of the extract. So the published extract on my server or cloud instance. The operator we're going to use in this comparison or this filter request is the equals operator. So I want to find the extract published to my Tableau Cloud instance that has a name. So name equal to North America sales, parentheses, extract refresh demo, close parentheses. And that's what we see here, right? This one exactly right here. So we want to only pull that one and refresh that extract. So let's go ahead and run this to make sure I haven't made a syntax error. And we have, so I said .add, it takes exactly 2. So what have I typed in here wrong? Oh, I forgot to actually add tsc.filter, and this needs to be indented. And this needs to be indented. So we're adding a filtering mechanism. Go ahead and run this. Okay, now we're good. Let me go ahead and we're going to expand on this now, right? So we have this filter request, we have this request options. It's going to be responsible for pulling just the specific extract we need from our Tableau Cloud instance and refreshing that. So let's say, go ahead and get extract specified in the request filter. So to access this, let's go ahead and look at what that object looks like. Right, so it looks like this. Now, to actually get something meaningful from this, what we need to do is we need to say data source. So this is going to be the particular data source or extract we want to refresh. We're going to say server.datasources.get request options. And let me just go ahead and run this first and show what this object looks like. Okay, here we go. We have a tuple that contains the data source object and then the pagination item. So we have the data source object, and because we want to refresh the data source object, what we need to do is we need to access the first item in the tuple and the first item in that list, right? So that's going to be this data source object here that we're going to access and use to refresh. So if I go ahead and run this again, and we look at what data source is, well, now it's just that data source object. And this is what we're going to pass in eventually to a refresh method that's at the data source's endpoint. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say trigger the extract refresh and wait for the response. To do this, we'll say job is equal to server.datasources. So we're using the data source's endpoint and the refresh method. And we're going to pass in that data source object because this is the one we want to refresh. Now, what we're going to do here next is just to use some print statements and then a try except else block to catch any particular error. So in my except block, I'm going to do a bare except because in this case, any type of exception raised is going to result in the failure of the extract refresh. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say print, do an F string. I'm going to say job, and I'll pass in the job ID. So this job is actually running. And then let's go ahead and say try job equals server.jobs.wait for job. What is this going to allow me to do? It's going to allow me to send the job into a queue and constantly pull for the response. So wait for a response. So whether it be success, failure, in progress, we will consistently ping for the response and we'll be able to get that back. So whether it's a failure, success, or in progress. So let's go ahead and do try, job is equal to that. And then we're going to say accept. So bare accept, and I'm going to say in this case, response equals job failed. So if there's an exception, the job is going to fail no matter what. That's going to be the case. Else, so if it succeeds, it doesn't fail. What we'll say is that the job finished successfully, and here are the job details. So let's just say print job. Oh, let's do an actual multi-line statement here. So let's say response is equal to job finished successfully. And we'll go ahead and do this on, let's do 2 new lines here. And then we'll say job details. And let's do another new line. And then we're going to use a series of f strings to capture those job details. So in this job object, there's a series of attributes that you can display. So as a feedback loop, so you know what's going on, what happened. In this case, we're going to say, here's the job ID. Here's the flow name that was, or not the flow in this case, the extract that was refreshed as a result of running this program or this script. Here's when the job was created. Here's when it started, and here's when it ended. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say job ID. So similar to up above, we're going to say job ID, and we're going to just pass in that job ID value. And I need to make this an f string, of course. And let's go to the next line. Next thing is we're going to mention the actual extract that we refreshed. So we're going to say extract, and we'll say, what do we want to say here? We want to say the data source name. So we're just going to say data source name. Next thing, let's do the timestamp. So the job, time it was created, the time the job started, and the time the job completed. So let's do job created time. Let's go ahead and type a few of these out. Okay, and let's pass in a few of these attributes. So we're going to say job.startedAt. Do a new line. Do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste this. This should actually be created at, not started at. That should be started at, and this should be completed at. Okay, so we have a feedback loop that basically tells the user while this script is running that the job finished successfully. Here are the job details that include the job ID, the data source we actually refreshed, so the name of it, the job create time, the job started time, and the job end time. And I'm just going to keep it consistent here. Okay, so what we'll do here in the instance that it actually does succeed, so if it makes it to this else, we're going to actually print out that response. And this will be the response. It'll be a block of text that basically provides the information regarding the extract refresh. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, and here we are. So we have the job is running. So this is the job ID, so the locally unique identifier. It's currently running. And let's just give this a moment. What we are expecting, assuming it doesn't, an exception is not raised, is we're expecting this block of text to be spit out for us. All right, and here we are. So the job ID, so completed successfully. There's the job ID again, the name of the extract. And I did not do a new line here, so we should have had a new line here. What we're expecting is this to be on the next line. So the job created time, the job start time, and the job end time. So super important information for each of your jobs that you should probably be recording somewhere. You also have this recorded by default on the front end of your Tableau server or cloud instance. You can access those logs using Tableau Server Client or your Postgres database that sits behind those two, either your server or your cloud instance. So this is how you would go about programmatically triggering extracts published on your Tableau server or Tableau cloud instance. For proof that this is actually executed, let's go back to my Tableau cloud instance and look at that page. So previously this was the timestamp. If I refresh this, what we're going to see is we should see that it was just refreshed again. And it was. So September 15th, 2024, that's today at 5:51 p.m. So that's the Central Standard Time. This extract refresh was just refreshed as a result of running the script. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code quickly to recap what we've done. In the beginning, we configured a Tableau server authentication object. So this is going to allow us to connect and authenticate and ultimately sign in to our server. We need that to be able to create a filtering request that's going to allow us to refresh a specific extract. We created the data source object that basically stores that individual extract refresh object. And then we ultimately use that and created a job. So this job was responsible for performing that extract refresh. We used the data source's endpoints and the refresh method to pass in the data source to refresh that extract. So create a job on my Tableau server to do that. We created a try except else block that's going to basically say, hey, tried to refresh this extract. If any exception is raised, say it was a failure. Otherwise, print out this block that's nice and neatly formatted to provide the end user details on the extract refresh. So again, the job ID, the data source name, and then the date and time details that are pertinent to this extract refresh. If we go back to my Tableau Cloud server, we can actually go to that jobs page, right? So we go to the front end of your Tableau Cloud instance or your Tableau server. This is available on both products. Go to jobs, and you'll see that here is that particular job. So you'll see F8, 6.8, F2, blah, blah, blah. And if we were to look at that on back in Visual Studio Code, you would see that actually matches, right? That's the extract refresh we triggered programmatically. Okay, that wraps up this video on refreshing extracts programmatically through Tableau Server Client. I hope you found this tutorial useful and can use the concepts I've covered to level up your ability to manage your own Tableau server through automation. If you enjoyed this video, then please like the video and subscribe to my channel for notifications on future videos. Thank you again, and see you next time.